really excited that you guys are all here. And yeah, looking forward to getting into this security focused summit. And, you know, if you're doing a hackathon, you might wonder, okay, why do I need to care about security? I'm just going to build something quickly and, you know, put it on a test net. Maybe you'll even end up putting what you build onto mainnet. I think that would be awesome. But I also am here to warn you that if you do put it on mainnet, it will probably get hacked. And I can say that with a little bit of confidence after you know, going through 100 audits with Sherlock and working with some of the top protocols and teams in the space. Writing Solidity is extremely difficult, and there are all kinds of gotchas, and there are all kinds of things that you think it's safe and it's broken for 3 different reasons. And if it's broken a little bit, you can steal everything out of the contract. So we're going to get into some of that stuff and hopefully convince you that, you know, it might be worthwhile to spend a little bit of time focusing on security if you're going to take your hackathon project seriously after the hackathon, which I hope everyone does. So great, getting into it. Why crypto security matters. Let me see if I can. Okay, great. If you're new to crypto, you've probably still heard about a lot of the hacks, smart contract hacks, wallet hacks, private key hacks over the last few years. I mean, starting with the DAO hack, it's been many years of crypto hacks and very large hacks. I mean, I think everything on the screen right now is you know, a 9-figure or 8-figure exploit. We're talking about very big numbers when things go wrong in crypto, and they go wrong often. And even the best teams using the best security practices, working with the best firms, you know, still end up having issues, and there are still mistakes. And so, you know, one of the most important things to know when you're starting out is like, well, why is this even happening? You know, like, why are there so many hacks in crypto, but like Bank of America or Barclays or, you know, banks that I'm used to, they don't get hacked, all right? At least you don't hear about it. So the first thing to understand is kind of like, why is crypto so bad? Like, is everyone just reckless in this space, or what's going on here? And so, you know, the question is like, well, does Bank of America get hacked? And we're going to get into that a little bit, but the short answer is yes, Bank of America gets hacked, but it doesn't matter if they get hacked, because they can just, if somebody hacks into Bank of America's mainframe code, you know, whatever it's written in COBOL, and they change their own account balance from $0 to $10 million, Bank of America doesn't care. They can just go in and fix it. And that's because they have admin control. They control their database. And so the difference, which we'll get into as to why crypto hacks are much more deadly, is because no one controls the database. The code controls the database. So you might be thinking, well, then Bank of America is a lot better, because they can make sure that if you hard code $10 million in your account, they can go in and fix it. And if you send money to the wrong person, a lot of times they can fix that too. And they can fix all these things that make the traditional financial system like really awesome and make it has a lot of advantages compared to crypto. But there's a few disadvantages too. And there's one massive disadvantage, which is, okay, you know, money always comes out of the ATM, but sometimes it actually doesn't. And if you live in the US like myself, or if you live in Europe or, you know, some other countries, most people don't have any problem with the banking system, and the bank works and money comes out of the ATM and things are generally good. Like, why do I need to stop using my Chase account? Why do I need to put all my money in crypto? Well, crypto is really good for sort of the edge cases and sort of the things that you don't think will ever happen, and then all of a sudden they do happen. And I don't mean to call out Venezuela or Canada here. I'm sure there's plenty of people from those places, and they've experienced a little bit more firsthand compared to someone in the US why crypto is actually good and why it can be necessary. And again, the answer is Bank of America has admin control. And who has admin control over Bank of America? Well, the politicians have admin control over Bank of America. And so, in Venezuela, the politicians can control the supply of money. They can print more dollars out of nowhere, and they've been doing that super aggressively. Obviously, the U.S. has been doing that a little bit too, but it hasn't quite caught up yet. And you might have heard about the Canadian trucking crisis, we'll call it, a couple of years ago, where Canadian truckers were parking their trucks in the middle of Canadian cities as a protest, and instead of giving them tickets and arresting them, the Canadian government shut off their bank account and said, your money is no longer your money. And so that's kind of one of the problems with having admin control, someone else having admin control over your bank account, is they can shut it off. And we haven't seen a lot of, awful examples of this, which is why most people don't see the real use case for crypto. But in the extreme examples, and if you're heading into certain scenarios, with a country or politically or whatever, all of a sudden crypto becomes the most useful thing in the entire world when it's a matter of, I have access to my life savings or I don't. So to recap, traditional finance, TradFi, you're trusting bankers, you're trusting politicians, you're giving people admin access to your money, essentially. In DeFi, you're trusting code. Only the code has access to your money and you. And so depending on how you look at it, that sounds really great. Or that could sound terrible. The code has to work very well. And if you're trusting the code, well, you're trusting it with your life savings effectively if you're putting your money in DeFi. So it's really a double-edged sword, but in the scenario where you want to have full admin control over your money and you want no one else to, nothing compares to DeFi and nothing compares to trusting code. On the other hand, trusting code is extremely dangerous. Here's a quick pop quiz. I don't think I can see the chat, but I'll leave this up for a minute. This is just an example of a really well-known and well-intentioned function, I guess, that works really well, except in one slight edge case. And some of you may be familiar with this, some of you won't. I'll give you a minute to kind of see if you can spot the bug in this small example. To give you some background on this piece of code, it's a POC written by a top security expert. His name's Gerard Persson, and it's for an audit that was conducted about a year and a half ago at this point. And I believe the third BZX hack was also related to this exact kind of mistake. And there was another $30 million hack that was related to this exact mistake that happened here, or a very similar one. So what you're looking at, $38 million or so has been lost because of essentially the problem in this code. And so now that you've had a little bit of time to look at it, I'll explain what's going on here. So all we're trying to do is transfer balances from one account to another. And this code works really great, except you might see this line, balances memory, balances from equals balances from. That is stored in memory. And the only way this code can be broken, essentially, which was not thought of, which is an edge case sort of, is if you set the from address and the to address to be the same exact address, you can steal all of the money out of this protocol. The reason for that is because if you look at balances memory, balances from, and then balances memory, balances to, you'll see that essentially what we're doing is we're setting the from address and the to address. We're essentially overwriting the from address with the to address because it's the same address. So if you put in the same address for from and to, you overwrite in memory the from address and you only have the to address. So essentially you are able to subtract the balance from your account, but then you overwrite that account and you add balance to it, and you essentially create money out of nothing. Like you create a balance out of nothing. And this is the only way that you can take advantage of this is by putting the same address in the from and to parameters. And if you do that, you will be able to steal all of the money out of the protocol that has this code. So that's just a small example of everything is well-intentioned. Everything works really well. Tiny edge case. every bit of TVL in your protocol is gone. All the money's gone. So it's tricky. And to get back to the main point here, bad TradFi security usually means your information gets lost. We've all had our credit card information stolen. We've probably even had our social security or whatever stolen, 10 times at this point. And every time you see, an Equifax hack or a Target, hack or whatever, your information gets stolen again, and it's on another list. And this is bad, and it can end up in, credit card fraud and things like that. But for the most part, you don't lose your life savings when that happens. And a lot of times you don't even care that much if a database gets hacked and some of your information gets out there, because it's probably already out there to some extent. So bad TradFi security means you lose your information. They own your information. Bad Web3 security means they own your life savings. They're able to access the database and hack everything out of it. So if it was Bank of America's database, they could take literally all of the money out of Bank of America and say, this is mine now, using a bug like the one we just looked at. So, and that's why the bug bounties in Web3 are like 100 times higher in a lot of cases than the bug bounties in Web2, 10 to 100 times higher, because in Web3, the severity of the bug means that you can lose everything, or the protocol where you're putting your money, the app where you're putting your money, can lose everything. Whereas in traditional finance, the stakes are usually lower, and there's a lot of just guardrails and different things put in place to make sure that, even if your credit card information gets stolen, there's different services, Visa and whatnot, that will make sure that you're not losing your life savings. Your bank has different ways of doing that. And that's because in a lot of cases, they can basically just put in whatever they want to their database. And if you change their database, they don't care. They'll just change it back. So Web3 security is like way more crucial than it is, traditional cybersecurity. So that's really important to keep in mind, because it means that everything in Web3, everything in crypto has to be focused around security. So I guess, from Sherlock's viewpoint, we kind of see three main blockers to mass adoption. This is a little bit controversial, but it's essentially scalability, which is making sure that transactions can go through quickly. They can cost, a small amount of money. UX, you can have an app on your phone. You don't have to memorize your seed phrase. You don't have to do all of these different things. And then security is kind of the last one. Like if you are losing your life savings to a hack, you're not going to want to use that financial system anymore. And if that's how DeFi is going to be going, then DeFi is not going to be successful. So security is, at least from Sherlock's view, one of the main pillars to getting crypto to mass adoption. And for a little bit of background on Sherlock started out as a smart contract coverage provider. So basically, if a protocol gets hacked, Sherlock would help pay it back. If a protocol has a bug bounty submitted to it, basically a white hat, which is a good guy, saying, hey, I found a bug. I'm not going to hack this because I don't want, to be a bad guy, but I do want you to pay me something because I found this bug that could have caused a lot of damage. And so Sherlock helps protocols pay for those situations. And the reason Sherlock does this is because you can never prove that a smart contract is 100% safe. So security is super important. We already established that. And now we're bringing in the next piece, which is, oh, by the way, you can never prove that a smart contract you write is 100% safe. And so that's why Sherlock has this coverage protocol that we've built on mainnet. We've done all these things to try to help other protocols in the case where they have exploits, they have bug bounties, they have to pay out large amounts of money. And again, that's to help us get to mass adoption, because mainstream users are going to require not losing their life savings. If they lose their life savings, they're going to stop using crypto. And so that gets us to auditing. If you want to do smart contract coverage well, you want to limit exploits, you want to limit bug bounty payouts, you want to limit bugs, essentially. And the number one way to limit bugs in crypto right now is through auditing. And auditing just means people look for bugs in your smart contracts. And to give an example that's close to home, when Sherlock first started out, we weren't doing any auditing. We did not have our own audit process. We built that later. And so we relied on existing audit firms. and we built a protocol. We actually built 2 protocols. We got them audited by, I think, 5 different audit firms. And we had, frankly, really difficult experiences. The audit firms tried to find stuff, and it turned out they didn't find everything. And Sherlock nearly got hacked. I say nearly because a good guy, a white hat, found the bug instead of a bad guy. If a bad guy had found a bug, the bug that was missed, then Sherlock would have been hacked on mainnet. But instead, it was submitted to us through our bug bounty program. We paid the guy a ton of money for finding that bug. And, by the way, this was about 2 weeks after we had just paid a lot of money to an audit firm to try to find that bug, and they missed it. So auditing and security, it's really, really hard. You can have one of the best people in the space spend weeks looking at your smart contracts trying to find bugs, and they still might not find all the bugs. And in this case, it wasn't the auditors we hired who found the bug. It was some guy we had never heard of, never interfaced with, and he just happened to be looking through our contracts and found this bug. So that shows a little bit of the difficulty. Because of that, Sherlock got into auditing. We built our own audit process, and we combine an audit contest, which is essentially anyone in the world can participate and try to find bugs, and we'll pay them based on the bugs they find. And reserving top auditors, more like a traditional audit where you say, hey, I know this guy is good. I'm going to pay him a lot of money to spend all of his time looking for bugs in my smart contracts. And so Sherlock combines those 2 things, and we've been doing it for a little over a year now. We've audited Optimism and a bunch of other cool protocols. But in this case, focusing on Optimism, this is a little bit how this was the first audit we did with Optimism earlier this year. There were 2 reserved auditors, Zach Obront and Trust, really great guys, really top auditors. They were paid $10,000 a week just to show up and look at this code. And Sherlock, paid that on behalf of Optimism. And then there was also an audit contest where you could win up to $750,000 based on the bugs that were found. And so we got over 300 participants who all came in from places all over the world looking for bugs. And the combination of these 2 forces found 3 critical bugs in Optimism's 7th audit. So they had already done 6 more traditional audits where 2 people work in pairs to try to find bugs in the code. And these 3 critical bugs that could have caused, massive amounts of damage were not found until the 7th audit, until Sherlock looked at it. So again, just showing how crazy security is in this space and how difficult it is. And to break this down a little bit more, to give you some context, a lead senior Watson is just what we call reserved auditors. So there was one bug that was only found by the lead senior Watson team, Zach Obront and Trust. There was one bug that was only found by the community. And so that means some random person who just decided to show up and spend their time looking at these contracts found the bug. And there was one bug that both the lead senior Watsons, and the community found. And so the really interesting thing about this is if you only had the community, you would have missed a critical bug. If you only reserved the lead auditors, you would have missed a critical bug. And this is something that Sherlock has seen over and over again in our own audits. And it kind of is a good metaphor for the difficulty of smart contract security in crypto. After doing 100 audits, we've seen that if you don't have lead senior Watsons, if you don't reserve auditors, top auditors, hopefully, then you'll miss about a quarter of the bugs. You'll miss about a quarter of the critical bugs that will cause potentially all of the money in your smart contracts to be lost. And if you don't have a community-focused audit where anyone in the world can come in and participate and it's open source and they earn bounties, you'll miss about 1/3 of the critical vulnerabilities in your code base. So anyways, that's just a little bit about why you should care about smart contract security. I think I'm running up on time here. And a little bit about what Sherlock does and is doing to try to make sure that smart contracts built by some of the top teams and the most talented people in the space are able to be secured as much as possible. But at the end of the day, you can never prove that it's 100% secure. So security is really difficult in crypto, and it's something that everybody should be thinking about if they're thinking about seriously putting smart contracts on mainnet, because it's so difficult and there's so many gotchas, and you can have the smartest people in the space try to look for bugs, and they'll still miss some bugs. As we can see here, if you don't have the lead senior Watsons, essentially, have missed 1/3 of the critical bugs in the audits that Sherlock has done, and those guys are the best in the space. They're the most talented Navy SEALs of smart contract security. So, anyways, the takeaway is crypto is really cool because you don't have to give someone else admin access to your life savings, but it's really hard to make sure that the code is safe because you're only trusting the code. And if you are going to build something that you want other people to use and put their money into and hold value, you should care about security, because it is one of those problems that will never be 100% solved. So you're just trying to get to 99%, 99.5%, and have a great bug bounty program and do great audits and do all of these things. And that way you'll have the highest chance of making sure that your users don't get affected by hacks. And that's pretty much it.